Hi, and welcome to today's episode about fat metabolism, using fat as a fuel. I'm pretty sure I could come up to almost every athlete, either it's Olympic distance, half distance, full distance, or any triathlon coach and ask, hey, do you think fat combustion, using fat as a fuel is important for you? Do you think it is something you want to work for in training? And almost everybody would confirm yes. However, when you ask the question, okay, how is it actually regulated? What determines what is the difference between somebody who has a very good developed fat metabolism to somebody who does have a very poor developed fat metabolism? Most people don't know the answer, and that's what we're going to do today. So, you want to start with the aerobic metabolism. This is, so to speak, your engine that burns the fuel in order to produce energy, right? Aerobic metabolism using oxygen, obviously. And this engine can get its fuel from two sources. One source is carbohydrate and one source is fat. And the system that prepares the carbohydrates is called glycolysis. It uses glucose and produces lactate and fuels the aerobic metabolism. In terms of the fat, the system is called beta oxidation. Don't need to remember any of these terms really if you don't like to. And this is preparing the fat in order to get burned, so to speak, in the aerobic engine, simplified speaking. Now, what is interesting here is that the glycolytic system itself produces energy. And that, think about it, is intuitively right. If you think about a hard effort, a sprint, you talk about somebody who's producing energy in the anaerobic way. Here you go, that's it. You also might have heard that the fat combustion needs additional oxygen. And this is because it is not producing energy, it needs additional energy. And the energy can only come from aerobic sources. So what this system does, before it produces the fuel for the aerobic engine, it demands energy transfer from the aerobic engine to the beta oxidation in order to prepare the fuel. So there's additional oxygen need, okay? That's the first thing important to note. So, coming back to the question, what determines if you burn more fat or a little bit less fat, if you're a high fat burner, a low fat burner? Well, you have these two guys. And basically, simplified speaking, they are fighting who gets into this engine, who is allowed to deliver the fuel for the aerobic metabolism. That's the fight. And that is what it's about. So very simplified saying, you can say that one pushes out the other out of the metabolism. If you have a high fat diet, if you don't have a lot of carbohydrates, if you maybe ran out of glycogen, this system will be more dominant and will be able to deliver more substrate, more fuel for the aerobic engine, and this one is pushed back. On the other hand, if you have a lot of glycogen availability, if you have a lot of glucose, right? Basically triggering, this is the important thing to remember, basically triggering this system to produce more lactate, more fuel, to consume more carbohydrates, can be also triggered by intensity. High intensity triggers the system to use more glucose as a fuel. When this is running on a higher speed, so to speak, when this is delivering more substrate for the aerobic engine, it will push the fat out of the equation more and more. And again, think about it intuitively. Let's say you do a hard interval training. Let's say your threshold is 300 watts and you do intervals, maybe it's 350 VO2 max, so-called intervals whatsoever, and you recover at an intensity, let's say 200 watts. And maybe 200 watts normally is your long, slow distance, quote unquote, fat metabolism training. Think about it, do you actually burn fat in these resting periods in between intervals? No, you don't. You do the resting intervals to burn the lactate that you just accumulated. Hence, the lactate is here, produced, it needs to get combusted in the aerobic metabolism, hence it pushes out the fat out of the equation. So this is how the fat combustion is regulated. Two systems, so to speak, very simplified speaking, the stronger one wins, the one which delivers more energy, right, is in the foreground. The other one is in the background. And you can regulate this, for example, high VLA max means high glucose, high glycolytic turnover, less fat combustion. Low VLA max, obviously the opposite. And of course, on top of that, you need to have a high aerobic engine. You need to have a highly developed aerobic system. Because obviously, the more substrate, the more energy this can take in, the more ability there is to burn fat.